Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sherry Stevens, and I am the CEO of the Women's Executive Network. Welcome to our first virtual book club. And I want to thank Zahra for being the first to come out and lead the parade here. So thank you so much. Zahra is also a 2011 Canada's Most Powerful Women Top 100 Award winner. So I want to congratulate her on that. We're happy to have her in our WXN Top 100 community. And I was also very proud to have been asked to endorse Zahra's book with a testimonial. So thank you so much. That was such an honor to be able to do that for you. And I hope everybody out there is staying healthy and safe. It's been quite a ride over the last 8 weeks or so. And, you know, we think about the word hope, and hope is a very powerful word for us in a lot of our lives, and in Zahra's for sure. And it just brings a whole new meaning these days as well, right? That we hope that, you know, everybody will be safe, and we hope that we will be able to see our loved ones again, and we hope that we'll be able to hug them and tell them that we love them. So hope is a very powerful word right now. And just, you know, around Zahra's story too, you know, the hope that she had that she would be free from the bonds that kept her from being the most beautiful and powerful woman that she has become. And so it's just, I think it's things that, you know, we take for granted some of our liberties, I think, as women in Canada. Yes, there are women that we are probably oppressed that maybe we don't know about, but I think in general, I think we're very fortunate in Canada as women to be able to have our liberties and our freedoms. And I think Zahra's story is going to put a very different perspective on our lives as women here. You know, she's taken her story, you know, of suppression and oppression, and her story of courage and resilience, and then finally of hope and freedom and happiness. It's a great story, and I hope that you all enjoy it today. Zahra is a beacon of hope for women in Canada and around the world. So thank you, Zahra. I appreciate you so much for being here. We love you, and thank you for sharing your incredible story with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I love you guys too. You have been awesome. And thank you everyone for joining WXN's first virtual book club, and all of you for signing up. And it's also my first virtual book club. So I hope this works for everyone. I am in Montana. We drove down from Calgary for a weekend. And then it seemed that the world kind of went to hell in a handbasket, and we just 3 months later, we're still here. I was just saying to Virginia before we started that I haven't blow dried my hair in a really long time, and I cut my hair myself, and I realize now that I've blow dried it that one side is quite a bit longer than the other. So I need to work on that. But yeah, thank you very much for being here. It feels very strange to be talking to myself on the camera, but I am very excited. So let me start by telling those of you that haven't read the book a tiny bit about myself, and then I'm going to read the intro of the book as a way to introduce both me and why I wrote this book. And then I was really hoping to make this interactive, and I wanted to talk about what it takes and the different what it takes learnings that I've had in my life, and I am 100% sure every single one of you have had in yours, and hopefully we can share some stories about resilience and what it took to become the best version of yourself. So I'm going to show a photo. Well, Gary's going to show a photo. So, oh, sorry, I just need to not make this full screen. So this is me a number of many years ago, and at the time, Gary, you can put that off now if you, sorry. Just trying to, yeah, so this is me a number of years ago, and I was a stay-at-home mom. I had come out on the other side of 2 war zones and moving continents, once as a refugee and once as an immigrant. And I didn't have much more than a high school degree and no aspirations for a career, you know, or anything outside the 4 walls of my home and my life. And since then, many things have changed. But what hasn't changed is the fundamental person that I am inside. My values, my desire for something better, my need to grow. And that's what I wanted this book to be about, not about the small, big, or terrible setbacks that we all have in our lives and we all face, but what you do with them, how you learn from them, where they take you. So please indulge me. Again, thank you for signing in, and I will start by reading an introduction of the book, and here it is. So I'm just going to read a portion of the introduction, and so it starts with, it takes an introduction. I am a girl from Yemen. For me, this simple sentence holds endless complexity. You likely have already formed an opinion about me, about this book. And I will tell you, though, that whatever you first imagined me to be, I am also the opposite. I am East and I am West, and every single damn thing in between. From obedient Muslim daughter to one of Canada's most powerful women, thank you, WXN. From dutiful housewife to independent businesswoman. From not being allowed to drive to getting my very own motorcycle. From a 20-year-old married woman with children to a 40-year-old wild child. I am a million conflicted contradictions rolled into one complicated, uncomplicated person. I spent much of my life bending myself into thousands of different shapes in order to be the person that I thought I had to be. Ultimately, I learned that what I needed was not the ability to fit in, but the freedom and the courage to step out. This is a story about what happens when the ideals to which you cling to most tightly begin to slip from your grasp. What that openness feels like, beyond the fear that without those definitions, there is no you. This book is about what it takes to build a life that is your own, to free your mind from its many ugly demons, and to walk into the future without the chains that hold you back. Bookstores are crammed with books full of formulas for success, for happiness, for wealth, for health, for fulfillment. Magazines, courses, websites by the thousands claim to show you how to follow your passion and your desire. They claim to help you define who you think you need to be based on other people's definitions, and draw a picture for you about what life should look like. Here's the truth. There is no magic bullet, no formula, no rule book, and there's not one single template. I will tell you what it takes. It takes everything that you have and then some more. It takes your experiences, your hard work, your talent, your perseverance. It takes your history and your community. It takes opportunities and doors that are open and some that are closed. It takes those you love, the values for which you are willing to sacrifice something for. And sometimes it simply takes luck and being in the right place at the right time. It takes legacy that has nothing to do with your ability. Researchers have found evidence that your ancestors' childhoods and adventures may affect your personality, gifting you with anxiety or resilience. Along with my great-grandmother's Burmese nose, my mother's Indian skin, my father's Yemeni forehead, I inherited a series of advantages and benefits from those who came before me. My fundamental, unchangeable self has been shaped by generations and entire worlds of tradition. So has yours. I wrote what it takes to show you that everything you need to live your best life is already in you. It begins with acknowledging your roots. Acknowledge and accept setbacks that will knock you to your knees and conflicts that will shake your most fundamental beliefs. Because what it takes is simply simply overcoming the hurdles that arrive in your life without warning or apology. It takes the humility to learn how to embrace them. It'll take joy, delight in the journey, as rocky as it is, and gratitude for the opportunities we have to share the road. In this book, I share my understanding of identity and the ideas that helped me, and I hope may help you, stay grounded through life's challenges. The themes in this book are very simple. They are the small things that fix the big things, the baby steps that lead to winning the long game. You can be all the contradictory things that hopefully inspired you to pick up this book, and you can thrive. So that's kind of what I wrote, the book, and what was important for me in writing this. I wanted to highlight not the challenges, but the mindset that we all need to move forward. And starting at a really pivotal time in my life, about halfway through the book, I start dividing the chapters with what it takes lessons. And I'd like to read a few of them from the book for you. So the first one is It Takes Confidence. And I want to tell you a story about a friend of mine. So think about confidence as a living thing, a child of yours. You grow it by taking care of it. Feed that confidence daily, and it'll grow bigger and bigger, bit by bit. It is hungry for strategies that make it feel better. Get a great haircut, learn how to do your makeup well, wear the clothes that fit you properly, discover new skills, and then hone them after you acquire them. Learn new things, exercise, study after study will tell you people who work out lead happier lives. Read everything. Become the most interesting person in the room. You can feed your confidence endlessly. It'll come back for more. It'll never be full. It's a little bit greedy. And when you run out of strategies, fake it. That works too. I sure did learn that the hard way. Lift your head up, look at the world in the eye, and act as though your jelly nerves are made of steel. Slow your breathing, lean back, loosen your jaw, smile, and listen actively. I met Andrea a few years ago when we both attended a leadership conference in Washington, D.C. There were only 6 women at this conference and about 150 men. So I suggested to the organizers that the six women would room together so that we could get to know each other and kind of, you know, have some allies at the conference. Andrea put her hand up immediately when that email went out, and so she was my roommate. So did everybody else, and all 6 women kind of roomed together. When we met, I realized how shy she was and how beautiful she was. When we were getting ready, I told her that I had spent a lot of time standing behind makeup artists and getting models ready for photo shoots, and I had learned a lot and loved doing makeup. Did she want me to do hers for dinner? Her eyes lit up and she said yes. If I could make her look like me. I laughed and I told her about my false eyelashes and my years of contouring makeup training. That night, she stood a little taller, smiled a little bigger, and she looked gorgeous. I got this message from her a year later. Good morning, Zahra. I am wrapping up my last day of committee meetings for Entrepreneurs Organization in Vancouver. And I wanted to take a moment to thank you for the influence, wisdom, and friendship you shared with me at LA 14. I am so glad we were roomies. I am a different person because of you today than I was a year ago. New makeup, new eyelashes, new attention to how I dress and why. I have an increased level of confidence because I saw you blending your talent, intelligence, and beauty and owning them all together. I am grateful for your friendship and wanted you to know you impacted my life in positive ways. Have a wonderful holiday weekend with your girls. I look forward to the next time our paths cross. That really made me cry. And it made all the times I've been told I'm too bossy, too strong, or aggressive worth it. People don't need you to patronize them. They need you to use their talents to make yourself and them better. Andrea owns a catering company in Chicago, and she's doing an absolute fantastic job. I have to give her a shout out because she completely shifted her business to feeding first respond workers, police stations, and everything else. And she's absolutely an amazing woman. The next thing I want to talk about is change. And let me tell you a really quick story about when change really began to happen for me. So where I grew up in a society that was very built on tradition and religion and what's very strict fundamentals of what's right and what's wrong. And I grew up being told that being gay was bad and that you would go to hell. And I'd never met a gay person because of the way society is. You're just not allowed to come out. And then I moved to Canada and I met Peter, who was my first gay friend. And I didn't know for a long time that he was gay. We became really good friends. And one day we're walking down the street and he told me that he was gay. And I was pretty shaken up because I had these beliefs about him and how he was, and I went home and I cried and I didn't want to talk to him. And then I stopped to think, and I'm like, wait, why do I believe those things? And who told them to me, and what do they mean? And so I wrote this divider in the book, and it's called It Takes Change. In Yemen, women are known by the names of the most important men in their lives. First their fathers, then their husbands, then their sons. I was called Bint Anwar, the daughter of Anwar, until I became my husband's wife. This didn't change when my girls were born. It only changed when my son was born. And then I became Ahmed, Ahmed's mother. For a long time, I was content with being told who I was. Even after moving to Canada, I carried around a lifetime of tradition, taboos, and restrictions, like a chip on my shoulder. Most things were told to me, not things I had considered and made up my mind about, but things I thought I must believe in because everybody said so. My art school friend Peter opened my eyes to another way, one where I questioned my beliefs, trying to find out where they came from and whether they were the right ones. For the first time, I challenged my blind faith. I had been given a brain. I was pretty sure that God wanted me to use it. I started questioning everything, the roles assigned to me, the thoughts in my head, the words others told me, keeping what I decided I believed in and discarding the rest. I made up my own mind. I was breaking a mold that was so carefully built by generations before me. At times, I felt the guilt eating at my soul. How could I be so ungrateful, so self-absorbed, that I needed to discard centuries of teachings, like a quilt passed down through generations, only to be used as a dish rag? According to Tim Redding, author of Struggling Forward, Embrace the Struggle, Achieve Your Dreams, our belief system is the catalyst for our behavior. Together with factors such as DNA, personality, and habits built over a lifetime, our belief system is what makes us do the things we do. Furthermore, it is accumulated through every single thing around us, not just what we are taught at home. Your beliefs are bound together. A change in one will affect a change in all, especially if it is fundamental to who you think you are. You are now tasked to put it all together again in a way that is more able to handle the next seismic shift. My personality has always been decisive. I solve a problem and move on to the next one. I don't spend time going back. And because of that, my beliefs were set in stone. Imagine my surprise in finding out that even stones can change shape. All it might take is persistent drops of water. So at that time, I started looking at things very differently. I tried things like sushi and calamari that I had thought were terrible. I started discovering and experiencing. I started embracing personalities and cultures. I started to travel, and I started to discover who I was. And I only was able to do that when I actually opened up my mind to things that were not what I always believed in, and started thinking about others. So the next story is interesting. It's one that people kind of gravitate towards in the book, and they ask me about that one a lot. And I want to talk about shame for a minute. And you know, shame is kind of a bad word for most of us, but I always believe in the bright side. And one of my favorite quotes was Sir Ken Robinson was asked in a interview whether his glass was half full or half empty. And his answer was, who the F cares? Fill it up and drink it and fill it up again, right? So it doesn't matter. You just have to keep moving on. And so I've always looked at things that seem difficult and tried to find a silver lining, or tried to find a bright side. And shame is something that I grew up on. I think a lot of you might relate to that, the guilt that everybody instills in you, you know, and that was what I was always told. But this is a story about shame. And it says, Aib. Aib is a word that has haunted me my entire life. It's what every generation of women in my family said to me when I stepped out of line. Even my daughters catch themselves saying it to each other and to me sometimes. Aib. A lifetime of feeling shame for wanting what I wanted, for needing what I needed. Aib means disgrace or shame in Arabic. I should hate the word, but I don't. Shockingly, I love it because I know there's a healthy side to shame. Healthy shame tells me that I have done something that goes against my core beliefs and values. Healthy shame makes me feel bad about my behavior, which in turn reminds me to be better. Healthy shame doesn't tell me that I am bad, but it tells me I did something bad and teaches me self-respect and humility. Isn't it interesting that antonyms for shame include approval, esteem, honor, praise, and pride? How do you get to those things if you have no shame? Dave Kaiser is an executive coach who has a lot of things to say about shame and why it's your friend. For starters, he suggests that shame is a clue to your vulnerabilities. When someone is critical, when someone's criticism holds a shred of truth, I feel the knife twist. Eleanor Roosevelt said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." When you feel shame, says David Kaiser, you are subconsciously consenting to whatever was said about you. It is insight into what you believe about yourself and indicates what you might want to work on as personal growth. Shame also keeps your ego in check. When you've done something that hurts yourself or others, you feel ashamed, and you should. Otherwise, we would live in a world of psychopaths. These days, it kind of feels we do. Your sense of shame is a moral compass that keeps you pointed in the right direction. Lastly, shame is actually a compliment. Dave concludes that you can feel shame only if you have a conscience and if it is working. Well, check, check, and check. So that's good. I don't get away with much, so I must be gold deep down. After my divorce, my mother didn't tell her friends for over a year that I had a divorce. 1 full year. We were at a dinner party, and her friends asked me how my husband was, and I kind of looked over at my mom, and she turned bright red, and to her credit, she finally told them. I took her shame as my own. Reflecting back, the shame I felt about hurting my family, putting my kids through emotional turmoil, and disappointing a man I had a world of respect for. If I had made it through without any of those feelings, I wouldn't recognize myself. There's Aib again, keeping me on track. And the last one I want to read is a story about building connections. And I cannot say this enough, but connections are the most important thing that has saved me time and time again. I have made so many connections in my lifetime. I don't have one mentor, I have 200. I have different mentors for different things that I need them for, different emotions. My friend Louise, I don't think this is the story in here, but my friend Louise one time was going through something, and she called me. And so I said to her, she loves my cooking. And I said to her, why don't you come over, I'll make dinner, and we can sit together. And she's like, no, I don't think so, not with you. And I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And she said, you are not the person I come to when I need a shoulder to cry on. You are the person I come to when I need a kick in the ass. And thank you, Louise. But that's true. You know, I am more the person who wants to get things done and get over things and get to the next place. But you need every kind of person in your life, and it is your job to find those connections. So it takes connections. All human beings need a certain minimum quantity of regular, satisfying social interactions. Roy Baumeister and Mark Leary argue that many of the documented human needs, power, intimacy, approval, achievement, are driven by the need to belong. They tell us that the inability to meet this need results in mental distress. We are lonely. Connections are a side effect of belonging. They form the complex tangle of streets, avenues, and back alleys that get you everywhere in life. You never know where a friendship will lead you if you take its hand. More hands, more opportunity, more inspiration, more surprises. Most of my business came from my connections. So did my knowledge, my support, and my fun. I have cast a wide net of people I know around the globe. And I mean know. I know their kids, their businesses, and their lives. Superficial connections will get you nowhere. Farah Mohammed is the CEO, or was the CEO of the Malala Foundation. She's just moved back to Canada, an organization that helps girls go to school and reach their full potential. For years, I had admired her work at a distance. Reaching out through multiple mutual friends, I chased a lunch with her and got nowhere. She's so busy. She was too busy saving the world to eat for no specific reason with this stranger who would not stop emailing her. Fate intervened. One day we were both brought to the same event to speak, and I was no longer a faceless stalker. She actually said to me that she was reluctant to meet me because she felt I was just too much. She felt I was intimidating. I almost fell over because she was so intimidating, and we became fast friends after that. Not long ago, I was speaking at an event in Chile, and I did forget to mention in the book that it was actually Farah who got me that speaking engagement. She couldn't go, and so she called me and she said, "Do you want to go to Chile?" And of course, I'm like, yes. I coordinated my flight to allow myself 2 days to explore Brazil. I was already in that part of the world. I figured I've always wanted to visit the Christ the Redeemer statue, and there was a street artist whose work I really I was hoping to find him. I'm a very seasoned traveler. I am over-seasoned. I've been to more than 100 countries. However, I forgot that I needed a visa for Brazil until the moment I was sitting in a police holding cell at the airport in Rio at a low point in my traveling IQ. Waiting to be deported, I stared at my phone and begged it to bail me out. I called friends in Brazil who called the Consulate General of Canada in Brazil. It was 10 p.m. at night. The consular officer was polite-ish. He listened and then asked me if I had ever been on a plane before. Before this, did I not know that visitors to countries need visas? And then he said, "Ms. Al-Harazi, I've been in this situation before. I am sorry, but I can't even get an Olympian into this country without a visa. I am sorry, I can't help you. Good night." And he hung up on me. So best of luck, a click, a very judgmental one. Back on my phone, who did I know that could move bureaucratic mountains? I called Farah Muhammad at 11 p.m. Surprisingly, she answered. I explained how I had ended up where I was and asked if she could help. She paused while she flipped through her mental Rolodex. Then she told me to hang tight. She'd do her best and she'll call me back. 30 minutes later, my phone rang. It was the consular officer again. He said, "Who the F do you know in Ottawa?" Guess what I'm doing right now? I am on my way to the office to issue an emergency visa for you at midnight. And then he hung up on me again. 4 hours later, the head of the security of the airport walked to the door with me, handed me my passport with my 3-day emergency visa, and apologized for keeping me so long. The next day, the consular officer called me and he said, "What are you doing today? I am going to spend the day with you." And he actually did. He came and he hung out with me. He turned out his good friend was the artist that I had been trying to track down. I bought 2 paintings that are in my home in Toronto today. And he shipped them for me with his shipment that when he moved back to Canada. And they really remind me of that tiny holding cell in Rio and of friendships, old and new, that make impossible things possible. Every single person I meet challenges me to succeed by showing me what life looks like and what it can look like. And my small world has unfolded into a huge playing field. Fostering connections is about collecting people who inspire you. Internal and external barriers fall. The more people you know, the more potential the world seems to have. The more fans you have for your own success. A loud cheering section never hurts. So thank you, Farah, for that wonderful story that I can now share. So lastly, before I jump into the fun interactive part, and I really would love if you guys share your own stories about, you know, what inspired you, what skill did you learn, what piece of resilience did you learn, what did it take for you to learn something about yourself or move forward. But I want to talk to you about one last thing, and that is building a creative brief. So divorce was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. Worse than childbirth in a third world country in a dirty hospital with no medication and resources. And yes, that did happen, and it's in the book. But I was feeling really lost. I was feeling horrible. I was feeling guilt. I really was destroying my world and my children's world as I knew it. And I didn't even really know why I was doing that. And so I want to talk to you about divorce and about writing my own creative brief. So this is about when I finally moved into my new house. And I finally got the keys to my new place a few days before Christmas. Everyone had gone away on holiday, including my parents and all my friends. The kids were on vacation in Turkey with their father and his family. It was just Kale, my dog, and me against the world. I will never forget the moment when my key turned into the lock, the door swung open, and I stepped into my new life. Blank walls, high ceilings, and floors that echoed every footstep. I felt the painful finality of 23 years of marriage ending, as well as the endless possibilities ahead. I closed the door behind me and slipped off my shoes. Now what? Wintry Christmas nights in Calgary are particularly quiet. Snow insulates sound, and the whole town is under wraps. I dropped my bags, unpacked my toiletries, put Kale's little winter boots on, and I went to the grocery store to fill my fridge. And the only thing that kept me company was the sight of my own breath in the chilly air. I will admit that putting the groceries away was really exciting. It was just me. I didn't have to deal with the kids' snack closet, which was always full of things that I hate to love and had a bad habit of sticking to my thighs. This time, my fridge and cupboards were filled only with fruits, veggies, protein, water, and tea. This was my clean start. I sat down on my unmade mattress, considered finding the sheets, decided that it was too much trouble, and tried to fall asleep. 10 minutes later, I was pacing my front room, missing my kids and feeling terribly sorry for myself. I had so many things to worry about. Money stresses were an entire list of their own. Calgary rides the roller coaster of a boom and bust economy, and the price of oil fluctuates. At that moment, we were still in the middle of the bust that had followed the 2008 financial crisis. Please, Lord, let me have another oil boom and I won't piss it away. Bumper stickers were appearing around town again. Allison, my business partner, had told me she was getting ready to retire, and so I bought her out. She did not want to go through another downturn. She was thinking of her health and her home in Mexico. Business was so bad, I had started paying salaries from company reserves. Don't ever do that. Don't pay salaries from company reserves. Sleep continued to evade me for the next few days until late one night, I was still pacing. I realized I needed to do something. Otherwise, the lack of sleep would kill me before the stress did. I pulled a notebook from my shoulder bag. When things are chaotic around me, I need to get organized. When I need to feel in control, I clean my desk, I sort my closet, I make all the hangers face inward, I pull out my bucket of cleaning toothbrushes and attack my baseboards. I make a list. Since I had nothing to clean in my sparkly new house and all the boxes were already unpacked, I made a list. Lists calm me better than bubble baths do most people. I always feel a huge satisfaction as I cross things off. I am pretty anal about it. I even write things down that I've already done just so I can cross them off if I didn't have them on the list before. My new to-do list included things I needed for the new house and my new life. I suddenly started to feel energized. Freedom echoed in my head as it had for so many years. Only this time it was an exciting reality, not a plea. Home and car insurance, life insurance so the kids would be okay if anything happened to me, new bank accounts, automatic payments, how much money did I actually have in the bank, how did I really feel, how much did I really need for an emergency fund. I needed a safety deposit box and an alarm system, tax filings, setting up the utilities, calling the cable company, changing my address with the post office and with the credit card companies. This may sound about as exciting as getting your teeth pulled. But if you don't understand, this was the first time that I got to do those things for myself and set it up, paying for them out of my own account by money that I had earned with no one to tell me to pick Alarm Force over ADT. Once my to-do list was finished, I felt I had accomplished a lot. Why was I still not satisfied? Damn it, the list was supposed to calm me. Then I realized the problem I had been avoiding, my children. During this time in our family's lives, I had felt them retreating, and that had to change. My children were and are my entire world. Nothing makes sense or has value without them. I wanted their bright light back in my orbit again. I started writing about each child. What were the red flags? What could I do to help resolve them? What was keeping them up at night, and how could I fix that? My notebook was running out of paper, so the next day I bought poster size Post-it notes that we used at Foundry for brainstorming, and I papered my bare walls. I bought black Sharpies. I even found a pack of stickers with glitter on them and brought that home too. I stuck them at the top of every page as a reminder of what was really important. I started in the dining room with a poster for each child. On each one, I wrote a plan that outlined what the child needed from me and what I needed to do. In Yemen, we are taught that you have to respect your parents. You don't get a choice. I understood, however, that you don't just automatically get handed respect when you become a parent. You need to earn it. I was determined to earn their respect back because I knew I already had their love. The 3 posters in front of me became 6, then 9. I began considering all of my relationships that needed attention. I wrote down more names, the people I wished I'd spent more time with, the ones who needed a talking to, the ones who had become toxic and needed to go. I was ruthless, writing names, crossing off names, adding some back. I was back to the old Foundry value of keep good company, surrounding myself with people I knew would push me to be my best self. I built friend list. I walked away from many of them, too exhausted to try and keep yet another relationship fed. Who were the people that were going to be my support system, and who were the ones that were bringing me down? My friends went into 2 buckets, worth the effort and not. I built mentor lists. Most of the relationships already existed, but I wanted to categorize them. What did they mentor me in? What did I need them for? What did they need me for? They went into buckets, personal, family, and business. The Louise story is in here, so I won't tell you that again. I made a list of the people I wanted in my life, not specific names, but types of people for the types of things I wanted to do. Political hacks, fashionistas, gym rats, builders of things, travel junkies, my kind of people. I made another list of what I would need to do and where I would need to go to find them. I knew I wanted them in my life, but why would they want me in theirs? What value would I add? My dining room walls started to get crowded, so I moved to the living room. I wrote a list of words I would use to describe myself: caring, strong, outspoken, giving, determined, forgetful. A week later, I asked some friends and employees to do the same, listing words that came to their minds when they thought of me. Their words included loyal, bold, strong, helping, engaged, but they also included words like distant, distracted, unyielding, and pig-headed. I studied the lists, fascinated by the similarities and the differences. So many words describing the same trait, but in a completely different way. I wanted the people whom I wanted in my life to want me in theirs too. To achieve that, I clearly had some work to do on myself. Looking at the lists of words, I came to realize I was building a value proposition. My core values were there, unchanged, while the things I needed to change, like being present, were doable and within my reach. For so long, I had carefully managed how much I revealed to the world. Telling them only what I wanted them to hear meant that I was in control, but I needed to change that. I couldn't manage everyone at every time. It was time to stop trying to either fit in or stand out and simply be myself. There before me on the Post-it notes, I'm just watching the time. There before me on the Post-it notes, I had built my life team, my target audience, and my value proposition. How fascinating, I thought. I had begun to build a creative brief. When creatives build a brand, we always build a brief first. For the team, for the client, for the protection of both of us. A creative brief is meant to bring all parties to an understanding of what the brand needs to look like, what it needs to walk and talk like, who it needs to engage, who its competition is, and who's on its team. What did the product do? What was its function? Who would want to use it? Why does it exist? Every detail about the brand and the world around it. Ideas, inspirations, beliefs, values, questions, dreams, fears, and hopes. When we build a creative brief, we build it to be able to sell a product or service, to the audience that is willing to buy it. And the ultimate goal is company growth and future viability for the people it serves. And that's what I needed to accomplish for myself. A creative brief was the perfect vehicle for me to better understand my needs and my future. I always had been my father's daughter, my husband's wife, and my children's mother. Now I needed to figure out who I was. It had always been so easy, almost instinctual, for me to shift into automatic pilot. I think this is true for all of us, especially women. We are the nurturers and the caretakers, so we need to keep it all together, not just for us, but for those we love. How often do we go about life without a plan and end up somehow where we didn't want to go in the first place? Step 1, figure out where I wanted to go. Step 2, figure out how I was going to get there. You should understand how alien all of this was for me. In general, I make up my mind very fast. I know what I want. I chase it with determination. I don't like to explore feelings or talk about my chakras. I hate yoga, meditation, and Tony Robbins. But here I was now, agonizing over every word, every emotion, every setback, every barrier. I forced myself to be honest about my shortcomings. I wrote down dreams, fears, and beliefs. I climbed over brick wall after brick wall, peeling back layers of childhood insecurities, cultural hangups, shackles, and anger. I wrote a creative brief to help me survive the next 5 minutes and the next 20 years. What started emerging was messy and really cluttered. This was not how my life was supposed to look like. I like neat and tidy boxes. I started to organize. What are my brand features and attributes, my differentiating factors? What makes me me? I built a passion list, things I wanted to do, taste, experience, know. I have to admit that so far, as quickly as I cross things off that list, I keep adding more. What are my barriers to entry? What is stopping me from getting to where I wanted to go? What is stopping me from reaching my goals? What am I good at doing? What am I particularly bad at doing? What is my brand promise? What are my values? What are my mandatories? After working hard on these questions for a few days, I realized that the Foundry values that I had written years earlier when I was a green, fresh entrepreneur still held. They still fit my business and they fit my life. I drew a pie chart of what was important: family, business, friends, fitness, faith, community, and fun. How much of my pie did I spend on each thing? When I stepped back to look at it, the proportions were all wrong. That chart didn't correspond to my priorities or my passions. I drew a new pie chart of how I wanted to allocate my time. Something very big began to emerge. Nowhere on any list was my passion for marketing. I was coming to a shocking realization that I didn't like my work. In fact, nothing about my work filled the part of my soul that craved purpose and my reason for being. But knowing that I needed my company and its income, I filed that thought away to deal with later. Another slice strangely emerged: faith. I needed to reconnect with faith, which I had turned away from many years ago, first out of defiance and later out of guilt. I might not carry a photo of the Virgin Mary in my wallet along with verses from the Quran as my mother does, but I do believe in God. I was tired of running away from the beliefs that had not worked for me in the past. I wanted to more deeply explore the ways this part of me could bring me to a place of peace and contentment. What was I put on this earth to do? Why will I matter? I wrote down my purpose statement. I will spend the rest of my life collecting and telling stories and experiences that will change minds, perspectives, objectives, and hearts. It felt so right. It had purpose and heart, connection and emotion. The heaviness on my shoulders started to lift. I began to set goals, short-term and long-term, large and small. Within 6 months, I'm going to fix my relationship with the kids. I am going to travel to another 50 countries before my 50th birthday, which, by the way, I did, and my 50th birthday is coming up this year. In 3 years, I'm going to pay off the house and grow my company revenue to 50 million. That did not happen, but that's okay. I have a new startup. That might still happen. The only goal I didn't write or even consider was a partner in my life. I just couldn't even think about handing any part of my life to anyone else ever again. Notes lined the living room, the staircase, my bathroom, and the upstairs hallway. Reams of paper filled my once empty white walls, and then finally, I was finished. A feeling of calm washed over me as I saw my plan in front of me. I pulled the papers off the wall, rolled them up, and put them in the recycling bin. I already knew in my heart what they told me. It felt symbolic of a new beginning. I did find that partner, and he is pretty amazing and exceptional, but that's a different story. And I think we should probably open it up. Oh, actually, I have one more slide to show you guys. If Gary can please put that up. So this is part of the creative brief, and it's the first part is the internal identity, who am I, and the analysis, the verbal identity, where am I going, and our visual identity, how am I going to get there. And I kind of broke it up into, again, differentiating factor, passion list, barriers to entry, key roles, competencies, who's your tribe, what is your purpose statement, goal setting. And I actually have built a workbook around this, and I will, if any of you want the workbook, it's kind of fun to do. It's a fun rainy weekend exercise, and if any of you want the workbook, please email WXN and they will send it to you. So thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys listening to me. Now I would love to hear from you guys. If you have any questions, if you have stories to share, you know, that's what we're all supposed to do, is inspire each other. And that's the best part of WXN and people and women. And I'd love to hear from you. So I'm going to turn this over to Gary and Virginia now.
So on your screen, as you're in Zoom at the bottom, there's an opportunity to raise your hand. And if you use that function and raise your hand, Gary or I will unmute your microphone, and you'll have an opportunity to ask Zahra any questions, make any comments, anything that you wish. And we'll just watch for that.
Or share a what it takes story.
I'm happy to start, Zahra, with a question. I've been enjoying your book very much, and excuse me, I loved learning about the challenges that you spoke about in school as you were growing up, and how you problem solved through them. And you talk about using your English when you were at the Arabic school, being useful to others, and how that kind of helped you through that time. So I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit more about that and how you continue to use that in your business today.
Sure. Thank you for that, Gary. You know, it was interesting at that period, and just an overview for those of you that might not have read the book yet. It was an interesting period in time because I'd moved to an Arabic school after being in an English one, and I was very much of an outsider and really didn't belong. And I was that weird kid who dressed funny and spoke funny. And so for almost 2 years, nobody really was my friend. And then I discovered something. My English, my command of the English language really helped me, because I started helping kids with their homework, and then I started helping them with just minor tutoring stuff, and then I started helping them cheat on their exams. And I did their English exams for them, and then everybody was getting 100, and everybody really liked me. But it was an interesting fundamental first lesson for me in marketing, because I realized that, you know, it was just the most basic level of becoming useful to someone, and what does that look like, and that's what a product should do. It should be useful. It should be something that you want and need, and helps you get better or feel more confident, or whatever it is. And it became a fundamental for my life, because, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, about what is your value proposition? Like, all of us have a target audience that we want, people that we want in our lives, but we have to also think that they need to want us in their lives. And what value do we bring to the table? And if you go into a networking opportunity, like, are you looking for who's going to help you? Are you looking for who you can help? And like 100% of the time, that is going to work in your benefit. So that's kind of the biggest lesson I think I took from that time period in my life, and also just moving forward into other areas, is what is your value proposition? And your value proposition is very much tied into the knowledge that you have, and the skills that you have, and the learning and the understanding and the soft skills and the hard skills that you have, which is why I'm building my new company. And it's a very skills-based learning initiative that we haven't launched yet, just because of COVID, and it's all in-person learning. And so we are just holding off the launch a little bit for that. But that's always been my life goal, is how do I make myself better? How do I add value? And so, yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
So if anyone wants to raise their hand, it's just under the little participants window, the white window. To the bottom left in the white window, there's a little raise hand. I do have a question that came in through when people were registering. So I'm going to read that one to you. It says, being a founder, I find that I have a fear of giving up control since it's my baby. However, I find doing it alone is also an isolating experience. Do you feel having complete control in being the final decision maker important in your success?
That's an interesting question. It's a loaded question, because it has to be the right person. In my first company, I had 2 business partners, and you'll read in the book that didn't quite go the way that I would have liked it to go, and that was because of all of us, right? And things that we did and did not do. And so I decided to go at it on my own, and I bought out both of my business partners, and I was running my company by myself. And I'll be honest with you, I hated that. I hated being responsible for everything. I hated being responsible for every single decision. It was fun, but, you know, and Entrepreneurs Organization played a really big part in my life after that, because I kind of had a board of directors through that. But it is hard. You're still ultimately responsible for everything yourself. And with my new venture, I found a business partner before I launched the company. And it's because I didn't want to do that. I didn't want every aspect of control. I think all of us are like horses with blinders. Like, you know, this is what I know, and this is what I can see. And then there's this whole world of stuff around me that I don't know. And so how can I be responsible for every decision, especially as a founder for a small company? You don't have resources to hire a CFO and a COO and a chief talent officer and a chief experience officer and all of that. So really, you're wearing 10,000 hats. And so I love having Sarah as my co-founder, because we bounce things off of each other, and we argue, and we do this a lot, but it's good because we push each other to be better. And so it is hard to give up control because it is your baby. However, there's just so much knowledge out there that it doesn't matter how much reading I do, and I just won't know everything. And so having that person to bounce ideas off of, to have your back, to watch out for you, to care just as much as you do is amazing. Thank you for that question. I don't know who it came from.
We do have some hands up here, so I am going to unmute Medulla, and you'll be able to speak and ask your question.
Hello. Hi, Zahra. Thanks so much for doing this call. I really enjoyed reading your book. When you were reading an excerpt earlier, there was a message that really resonated with me, and that was when you were talking about your divorce and how your mom hadn't mentioned to other people that you had gotten a divorce. And you mentioned how, I might be paraphrasing, but that you were holding on to a shame that wasn't even yours, it was actually your mother's. And it got me thinking that especially coming from an environment where your culture is different from the culture that your parents might have, how do you make sure that you're not holding on to beliefs or shame or any of those emotions that don't belong to you? Like, they belong to your parents, but it's been instilled in your head and it's just how you grew up, so you tend to hold on to them.
Yeah, thank you for that question. That question has, you know, I've been working on that for so many years, and I don't think I even have the answer solution to that. You know, I'll give you an example. Even with my kids, for so many years, in our culture, girls don't go out for sleepovers, right? You know, even when they're little, the boys can go, the girls can't go and sleep outside of the house. And I push that with my kids, you know, no, you can't go for a sleepover. And I realized how much I was holding them back, because all their friends were going, they were doing stuff, they were having fun, they were coming back and telling the girls these great stories. And, you know, something small as a sleepover that kind of was a holdback. And I kind of came to the realization that my culture, how I grew up, what I know is not my children's. My children are Canadian through and through. They have such a different way of thinking, such a different way of looking at the world, just as such a different knowledge base, that me holding them back to what I wanted and what, you know, what my beliefs were was confusing them. It was holding them back because they were stuck. They were stuck between their world and my world. And yeah, I really think that's such a fundamental mistake that immigrant parents make. Because I'm not saying you have to let go of your beliefs when you move to a new country, but you have to understand what is happening here and how you might really conflict your kids and conflict their world and you know, their future and stuff like that. So I really had to push myself, you know, to let go of certain things that I was holding on to. And then I started doing things that, you know, would make them at ease, not for them, just for them, but for me too, so that they don't see it as a taboo. But I can guarantee you that as hard as I try and as much as I've evolved and as far as I've got, I still make those mistakes. And so you just have to do the best you can. And honestly, like women, we beat ourselves so much. We beat ourselves up about the things that we do and we don't do and what we teach our kids and where we go wrong and what might happen. And we have to stop doing that. Like, we are doing our best. Our kids know that we love them. Our families know that we love them. And at some point you have to accept that, you know, you will continue to make mistakes. You will continue to hold on to beliefs that you can't just undo decades of conditioning, right? So you will continue to do those things and you will continue to try and overcome them and do the best you can. But I stopped beating myself up a long time ago, or at least I tried to. But thank you for that question. It is so hard.
Okay, I'm going to go to Liza, and I'll unmute you for your question. I think. There we go.
Hi. Zahra, it's Eliza. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I actually haven't had a chance to, or didn't even know about your book in advance, but when I saw this come up on in my email, I really wanted to participate, and I'm so glad I did. I will definitely be getting the book, and I kind of want to be that annoying follower that tries to connect with you offline. And I have so many different thoughts. I don't even know which question to ask you right now, but I think, you know, you were just talking about that, you know, there can be decades of conditioning and that kind of thing. And there's things we can learn and read and know on an intellectual level maybe, but actually practicing it when we're tested in a moment or when something triggers you, and you feel like maybe you've learned something and you kind of go back into that similar pattern. Just wondering kind of what you do, you know, if not yoga, meditation, and those other things, or, you know, how you kind of deal with those things, especially emotions that we try to fight, or, you know, yeah.
You know, I have a really good, I call it my Pandora's box. And it's a really good ability. If it, like, I like to deal with things immediately. For example, my mom used to make me sit at the dinner table and eat everything all the time. Like I couldn't leave a grain of rice on my plate. And so I learned early on that I had to eat the things that I hated first and just get them out of the way. And I'd save the things I loved on my plate for the end, because then I can enjoy that and I can actually finish my meal. But if I saved what I hated until the end, then I was never getting off that table and going to bed. And so I do that with a lot of things in my life. Like I just deal with the hard stuff first, get it out of the way and forget about it. However, there are things in your life that are hard things that you can't deal with. They're just beyond your control at this moment or at this time in your life and your ability. So I've learned to put them away and not let them eat at me, because that's where you become detrimental to yourself. And so I try my best. If I cannot deal with it and it's nothing that I can do about, I put it away and I focus on what I need to focus on, and I will come back to that. And I think everybody's different, right? Everybody has a different strategy. Some people would prefer to let something simmer on the back burner for 1,000 years before they deal with it. And, you know, so that's the whole point about what it takes, and why I wrote the book the way I did, and why I wanted it to sound the way it did, is because I really wanted all of us to realize that all of us deal with things differently. There's no solution or one way strategy for anything. And so yoga is great for some people. You know, it calms you down, but it's not great for me, because I'm the person in the back of the classroom going, come on, you know, and so I do better if I'm like in a kickboxing class and I'm just getting all my energy out and I can't think. I'm going so hard that I can't think, and I'm exhausted after that. That works for me. So find what strategy works for you to help you get over stuff. Like how is it best? But whatever it is, whatever that strategy is, you have to find it. You have to keep digging and working and finding that. Otherwise, we really do have the ability to make ourselves crazy and to really stop ourselves, because if we can't move past something, you know, like how many times have all of us said, you know, I'll deal with this when I do this. Right? And you keep pushing things back. I'll deal with this when I do this. It just doesn't work. If you're on a weight loss journey, then you start today, not when, you know, whatever it is, just get started and deal with it and find the strategy that works for you. But there really is no, you know, and even my strategies have over the years sometimes evolved, and what didn't work for me now works better. And so it's just, you know, I'll give you an example of, for years, I have been on this eternal diet. My kids hate hearing about it, but, you know, I'm always trying to eat healthy. I'm always looking for different ways. Like, do I try this? How do I eat healthy? How do I, you know, I try Splenda and then for a while, because it's no calories. And then I remember that it's really bad for me. And then I stop, you know, like, so you keep going back and forth in different things. And for a number of years, I tried different diets, different nutritionists, different all sorts of things, and nothing worked, nothing, like zero. And then last year, I found this amazing woman. Her name's Emma Tilson, and she's so easygoing. She doesn't coach me. You know, she doesn't tell me what to do, because I don't like that. But she's got just this really easy strategy. She's like, here's my fitness pal. You have 2,000 calories a day this week, and you just have to put your food in. And it was the simplest thing, but it worked so well with me. I have never been healthier. And so it was like, it was interesting, because this was like, after 10 things, this is the one that worked. So you just trial and error, and you will find it. It's all there. Thank you. And I hope you enjoy the book when you read it.
Okay, I just want to mention before I get to the next two questions that we are going to be bringing this over to a WXN Facebook page. It's called WXN Virtual Book Club, which will be mentioned again in the e-blast that you receive. So any questions that don't get answered today or any discussion that you want to take further, we're going to take that over into the Facebook group. Okay.
And just so everybody knows, I am the first of many WXN book club speakers that they have lined up. And I know a couple of them, Tanya and Samra, and they're fantastic. I actually heard Tanya speak for the first time. I think it was in Athens, in Greece, at an EO conference. And so there's a lot of great people coming. So I just got to be the experiment first one.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to unmute Sharon, so you can go ahead and ask your question. Oops, I just lost you. Just a second. Oh my goodness. Okay, Sharon, I believe you're unmuted.
Thank you. Hi, Zahra. My name's Sharon, and while I haven't read your book, I was really impressed, listening to you today, and I do believe your story is truly remarkable, all the success you've achieved and your journey along the way. So I will go and grab a copy of your book. So my question is, your story panned out, differently because, you were able to move out of your home country, and then you've had, the opportunity to settle in the Western world where the ideas of women empowerment and you can be your own boss. I mean, these are very, very ideas that are acceptable. But what about the women back, let's say, in your home country, which I believe is Yemen, which I believe even today, women still are living under a lot of social and cultural restrictions. Were you able to share your story directly with those women, or in other words, is your book available there? People have read it, and been inspired by your story, your journey. That was my question.
Thank you for that question. I always say I have friends that are still in Yemen, and I bet you if they had the opportunities that I had, they are smarter, faster, more talented, more able. And, I wish I could even see what they could do with opportunity. And that's why right in the introduction of my book, I talk about luck and being in the right place at the right time and having opportunity. And there are so many amazing stories of women that coming out of Yemen. And recently, somebody shared about my book, and yes, my book is available on Amazon globally, and but somebody shared it on a Yemeni women's feminist page, and I got several hundred female Yemeni followers like every day for a week or so. I actually called some people and I'm like, okay, who posted where, because something's happening. But I as you know, Yemen is in the middle of a brutal war, 4-year war right now, and people are really hurting, and it's harder to get the message across there. But I get some amazing notes from women who have an opportunity to read the book or listen to one of my speeches that are online. And like I said, there's countries like Yemen, there's so many other countries like Yemen, and so many women that are just so amazing. And there's so many stories, if you even look for people, Yemeni women that are in Yemen, in the middle of a war zone right now, and are achieving amazing things like winning art awards, global art awards, global journalistic awards, and being even in the middle of a war zone are doing amazing stuff. So I have a huge faith in the human spirit and what people can do no matter where they are. And yes, you're right, I am very much one of the lucky ones that was able to get out and do what I did in a country as amazing as Canada. So thank you.
Thanks. One of our last questions is coming from Samra Zafar, who is going to be another one of our authors that will be joining us in July. So I'll unmute you here, Samra. Go ahead.
You. Hi, Zahra.
Hi, how are you?
I just started to listen to your audiobook, and oh my God, I can't even tell you how many parallels and you know, similar sort of aha moments, and just it's just fabulous. It's close to home on so many levels. And my question is more about one of those hit close to home kind of things. You know, when you're, and I've certainly come from not the same country, but a similar kind of a cultural background, and kind of, you know, when you're carving your own path as a woman, and oftentimes you're going against what you've been taught and conditioned to believe in for decades. And it is hard enough to do it on your own and fight those internal battles, but oftentimes you got to make those really tough choices about the people in your life as well. And I've struggled with that a lot, and I still continue to struggle with that. You know, my relationship with my mother, my relationship with extended members of family back in Pakistan, because they just don't get why I do what I do, and I receive criticism and judgment and all kinds of things. So I'm kind of always on that, you know, walking on that tightrope of, yes, a part of me wants to hang on to that connection, but the other part of me also knows it's not healthy for me. So I just wanted to, you know, hear your perspective. Like, did you face that push and pull with people in your life that were in your life before, and now that, you know, you were on this, you're a trailblazer and you're carving your own path and had to make those tough choices sometimes, and how have you dealt with it?
That's a great question. You know, when I decided to get a divorce, I was very worried about my father, because, you know, as you know, it's the same in Yemen as it is in Pakistan, and you bring a lot of shame to your family when you decide to end your marriage, and so I was really worried. I was, you know, I knew that if my father, because I'm an only child, and there's a lot of responsibility that goes with that, if my father really was against it, then I likely would not go ahead with it. And my strict father was amazing. He, when I finished talking to him, he, you know, asked me one question, is this going to make you happy? And I said yes. And he said, okay, I'm behind you 100%. You know, that was my one big one that I was worried about. But yeah, I did. There was push and pull. Of course there is. So there's push and pull in every society, not just in ours, you know, and there was a lot of, I did lose a lot of people, and I did lose a lot of friendships. But you know what, Samra, I think my biggest learning was I stopped caring. Because if somebody is not going to add value to your life, you know, there's people that are not going to bring you up, and they're not going to bring you down, right? And only if I allow them. Only if I allow them will they be able to do that. And so I really did stop caring. I decided that I was going to live my life the way I wanted to live my life and what felt right to me. And I cannot carry other people's issues along with me. And everybody, most everybody kind of came along, and they figured it out based on their own, and the ones that I lost, I feel sad because I did, but you can't carry that guilt around. It destroys you. You can't carry that stress around. And I've really had to focus on my own well-being and my children's well-being, and what is important for my life moving forward, because I only have one. And I'm turning, like I said, I'm turning 50 this year, and I don't want another 10 years to go by and have regrets, because, you know, there's not that many 10 years left. And so just, you do what you got to do. That sounds a bit cold, but I really don't have another answer.
We have a few more online questions that had come through. To try to get to a few of them. So one question was, how do you practice gratitude, courage, and resilience today?
I don't know about courage. I mean, I do my best, and you know, I think a lot of us have way more courage inside of us than we actually know we do. And you're only going to know when you're hit with something bad, and you'll know how much courage you have. But I can't just decide to build courage in myself, right? But gratitude is something my grandmother taught me, and that story is in the book. And my grandmother would literally slap me upside my head if I ever complained. And she was very religious, and she was like, you have to thank God. There's food on the table, the sun is shining outside, you have your eyes, you have your feet, you have friends, like, what are you complaining? Did I just get an accent as I was pretending to be my grandmother? I think I did. But she would do that to me. She'd be like, what are you complaining about? Like, and if you are not grateful, it's going to get taken away from you and given to somebody who is. And she instilled that so much into my head that I've learned to say Alhamdulillah in my head, which is thank God, all the time. I say it all the time, especially when something bad happens to me. When something bad happens to me and I'm in a hurry to say that, because then I feel better, because I'm like, you know, no matter what bad thing happens in my life, I still have so much to be grateful for, like so much. And so it just changes my perspective. And so gratitude is my saving grace. It is the thing that brings me along all the time, and it's really important. And if you have gratitude, resilience, and courage, and everything else is going to come along with it. So, yeah. And you have to work hard at it. You have to work hard at being grateful all the time, because sometimes you just want to rage at the world, right? Yeah. Thank you.
This question is a little more timely with what we're going through. So what is your greatest takeaway right now during this global pandemic?
Well, the not serious answer is I am way more of an introvert than I ever thought I was. And I just, you know, even this is my first virtual book club since I've been here for the 2.5 months. And I was dreading this so much, because I'm just like, you know, can I just not do anything? So yes, I am much more of an introvert than I care to admit to. But you know, the biggest takeaways is relationships are so important. They're just so important, and what you do with them, even where you live. So I have one daughter that works in Paris and one daughter that works in London, and my son is in Toronto, and my parents are in Calgary. And these are the most important people to me, other than Mayo, who is here with me. The most important people to me in my life, and they're not here. They're not even close. And you know, it makes me really emotional to think about when am I going to see them again. And and I can't talk about this right now, but you know, so the big takeaway is what are the relationships in your life that are really important to you, and how close are they, physically and mentally and emotionally and everything else, to you, that allows you to go through something like this and be okay, you know. And even if it's waving at your grandma from a window, you can still do those things. And so it's back to the connections, like build those connections, because they're so important, and foster them and keep them close.
Thank you very much, Zahra. Didn't mean to start the emotions, but I know a lot of us are going through that right now, and it's good to hear your perspective. Did you have any closing things that you want to say? We're going to bring Sherry on again to speak just at the very end here, but is there anything else that you'd like to speak to?
I think that was really good. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you taking the time and signing in, and I hope you enjoy the book. And yes, please contact me. I will eventually answer. I'm really bad at DMs, really bad. But I'm generally okay on LinkedIn. I try and check it every once in a while. So, but yeah, I would love to hear from you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Zahra.
So like I said, we're going to pull this over to the WXN virtual book club, and we will provide a recording of today's to everybody so that they'll be able to access that book club. They'll be able to access the recording and any questions that didn't get answered today, I'll carry those over onto the Facebook page as well. So leave it with Sherry now, our president, or owner and CEO.
Thanks, Virginia. Thank you, Virginia and Gary, for being in the background and making this work so well. And Zahra, wow, thank you so much for being here with us and for being the first to present. You've really raised the bar quite high. And I just want to thank you, and thank you for your insights and your advice, and just for sharing your story with us and for allowing us to come into your home and just be with you today. Thank you so much. You're beautiful inside and out, and I really appreciate you. Thank you, and be safe, and soon we'll see our families again.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Just a quick,
appreciate that.
As we're going through this, Zahra, as you know, is the top 100. Our top 100 nominations are open now. And so please, please nominate an incredible woman like Zahra and others that can be potentially our top 100 of the future.
Thank you.
Also, our membership. We really encourage you to join our powerful WXN community today. It's really, we have a special on right now, especially for right now, during these difficult times from April until December for $99, $8.25 a month. That's a cup of coffee. So for a cup of coffee, you can join us, and our webinars, our virtual book clubs. We have some other exciting things coming up in the fall as well. And then our upcoming webinars, part 2, they started this week. So we have one next week and continuing into May. These are workshops, so they are an hour and a half of helping you to plan for the future, to get things done, to be courageous in how you're living currently, and to talk with our top 100 and see how they're making things work for themselves right now. And then we have upcoming meditation sessions up until May 15th with Ritu Gupta. Ritu is one of our top 100 from 2019. And she's incredible, just so positive, very inspirational, and you will love meditating with her. It's Fridays at 4 o'clock. So please join Ritu as she takes you through meditation sessions. And then, of course, our virtual book club. So Zahra was the first, and then we are actually, as of today, we're booked into March of 2021. Who knew we had so many amazing women who were authors, top 100. So, so pleased to have reached out to these amazing authors and looking forward to speaking with them and for them to share their stories as well. And then we're carrying it, of course, onto Facebook. So it'll be great to carry on the conversation. So thank you again, everybody. We appreciate you attending. Much love,